Hello, a warm welcome to Mentoring with Transparency. I am your host, Diana Fumbilwa, and I'm a coach, speaker, trainer, and pastor. Today, I have come to start a very exciting yet beneficial series, and I have called it the Boundary Series. Have you ever wondered why certain people treat you a certain way? Maybe you need to build some boundaries around certain areas of your life. Yes, we all need boundaries in our lives. And so if you want to know what the benefits of boundaries are, and maybe you want to discover what boundaries are really there for, you stay tuned and we'll explore together. So boundaries are very important in any person's life, because when you don't have boundaries, people don't know how to relate to you. People don't know how to treat you. So what are boundaries? Here's a definition of boundaries. I love this one, short and sweet. So boundaries mean anything that marks a border. Anything that marks a border. I'll give an example of a fence. You build a boundary around your house. So you have a fence that you build around your house. What does that fence do? It protects you. Usually when we hear the word boundary, we are thinking of restriction and confinement of the person that is inside that boundary. But boundaries are really meant to protect you and not to restrict you. So you're trying to keep the person that is outside the boundary from coming in. I give an example of a fence. You build a wall fence, for example, around your house because you want to restrict people that you don't want to enter your space from coming in without your permission or approval. So boundaries are meant to protect us. So if you have a boundary around your life, make sure it's meant to protect you. You are building that boundary not to fix someone, but to actually help yourself remain in that place of safety. So boundaries spell safety rather than restriction. So that's the first thing that we need to understand from the word go, that when we say boundaries, we are actually talking about protection. Now, for a boundary to be effective, it needs to be communicated. Okay, first of all, you need to understand why it is there. So we've established that boundaries are there to protect you as a human being. So they provide a safety net for you. They give you that private space that you own, and you, as the owner of that space, determine who comes in and who you keep out of that space. So we know that boundaries are there to protect us. But for a boundary to be effective, you need to make sure that it's communicated to the people that you want to keep outside that boundary. Let me zero in on personal boundaries because this will be our focus over the next few weeks. We are looking at you as the individual. What are the boundaries that you need to set around your life to make sure that you are a fully functional human being and you are giving out the best that you can give to society, because you are a well-rounded person that has boundaries that nurture and give you a safe zone where you can grow and thrive. So personal boundaries are guidelines and rules and limits that a person creates to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for other people to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those boundaries. So when we look at personal boundaries, we see words like safety, permission coming through, reasonable. So your boundaries have to be reasonable. They have to be something that's achievable. For example, if you say, I am not going to eat fatty foods for the next 2 weeks, you're creating a boundary for yourself that you will not allow fatty food to come anywhere near you. So when you build that boundary, you have to understand that you now have to gauge yourself whether you're able to follow through with that boundary. So why are boundaries actually important? You might be asking, so why should I have boundaries? Can't I just live my life and people will understand what I like and don't like? Simple answer is, no. There are people that just don't understand that other people have a different moral code to theirs. People need to be guided on how they relate to you. Remember, in one of my teaching sessions, I had mentioned, I think it was when I was talking about confidence. I did allude to the fact that you teach people how to treat you. So if you don't build boundaries, people won't know how far they can take certain things regarding the way they relate to you. So you are the chief craftsperson of your life. So you craft your own boundaries. You tell people what you like and what you don't like. You tell people what you will do and what you won't do. And this is rooted in understanding yourself. It's called self-awareness. You need to understand your own limitations. You need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. So you don't build boundaries from nowhere. Boundaries are built on personal values. So if you don't have values, it'll be very difficult for you to build any boundaries around your life. For example, if you don't have values around self-care, for example, anyone will ask you to do things at their convenience and for however long they desire you to do things for them. If you don't have that awareness and value around self-care, people will not value you, and they will not value your time, they will not value your services, simply because you have not shown them that you have a limit. A person can ask you to help them out for 2 hours. And if you have something to do after 1 hour, you need to be clear that you can help for an hour, but after that, you will need to leave and go to do something else. So boundaries kind of work like that. They need to be clearly communicated. They need to be based on an awareness that you as a person are important. Your well-being is just as important. And so your time and your resources are something that you have government over. God has given you time and resources that you are supposed to steward to actually build yourself into a person that will achieve the purpose that God has called you to achieve. So if you abuse your time, you abuse your talents, and you don't actually cultivate them to build you into a better version of you that will serve your society and generation better, then you are mismanaging the resources that God has given you. We need to know that boundaries will allow us to operate at capacities that are tolerable to our mental health, to our physical abilities, and to our emotional stamina. We need to understand that we have limitations, and it is boundaries that help us to operate within our capacity. I hope this is helping someone out there. So boundaries are important in that way, that they help us to care for ourselves. So boundaries allow you to communicate what your needs are, and they allow you to actually stay connected to who you really are at the core. And when you do that, you allow people to actually know the real you, and you allow them to accept you just the way you are. You don't have to pretend. So when you draw your boundaries, you stick with them, people understand that this is what you are about. Another thing that is important about boundaries is that they communicate respect, especially when they are honored and upheld by the people that we expect to honor those boundaries. When a person says, look, I can't come to the meeting today because I have a family commitment, that right there communicates to you that for this person, family is more important than these other things that you are inviting them to. So you hear people label such people as, oh, he's a family man, or she's a family woman, he's a person that values family. How do people conclude that? People don't go around saying, hey, I am a family man, I am a good father, I'm a good mother. It is the boundaries that you set that speak for you and define who you are to the onlookers. It is not what you say you are. It is how you set the borders of your life. It is what you will do and what you won't do that actually defines who you are to others. So let's turn now to the benefits of boundaries quickly, and we will conclude this session of our boundary series. So benefit number one is that boundaries provide greater self-esteem. What do I mean by that? When you build a boundary around your life, you are communicating that you are important. And when you value yourself in that way and people honor the space in which you operate, you are raising your level of self-esteem. You are communicating to others that I am an esteemable person. This is how I look at myself. And if you're going to relate with me, you are going to have to come up to this level where I see myself from. This is the version of me that I'm serving to you. That is the version you expect them to accept. As you begin to explore the possibility of creating some new boundaries, you will understand with time that these boundaries will be tested, and we will talk about that in another session. But today I want you to understand that one of the benefits of building boundaries around your personal life is that you have a sense of great self-esteem. You are defining yourself as a person of value. You are laying down a foundation of rules by which people should relate to you if they decide to come into your personal space and pursue a relationship with you. Benefit number two of boundaries is that you have greater safety and peace. This is very important. When you break your own boundaries and you go against them, there is a sense of turmoil in your heart. There is a sense of turmoil in your mind. Have you ever told yourself, oh, I will not do that again, or I will not allow that to happen again? And then when it has happened, you beat yourself up and think, how could I allow this to happen? I'll give you an example. If you are in an organization and there is this one member of your team that you just can't get along with, and maybe they push your buttons, maybe they always rub you the wrong way, they're always working against you and actively undermining you, you decide, okay, this week I will not allow this person to treat me like this. And you go off to the office, and first thing that happens is they just say one word and it just brings down your self-esteem. Have you ever had that feeling that says, how could you allow this to happen again when you said it won't happen? You will find that when you uphold your borders and keep them standing strong, regardless of what challenges and wind is blown against them, when you put your foot down and say, I will not accept this kind of treatment, I will not accept people speaking to me in this manner that is disrespectful. When you put your foot down and say, I will not accept that, people gradually begin to align with what you are asking for. So you have peace. You don't have to worry about you having violated yourself when you actually stay assertive in your position of building and, standing up for your boundaries. Now, there's a book that I'm writing. It'll be coming out soon, and it's called Bounce Back Stronger. And chapter 9 of that book actually touches on boundaries. And one of the things that I talk about in that book is how it's so important that you follow through with any breach of your boundaries. Because if someone breaks your boundaries or crosses the line, crosses the borders of your boundary, and you do not assert that it is not acceptable, you are actually teaching them that you're not serious about your boundaries. Remember, I said before that you teach people how to treat you. And one of the aspects of teaching is actually correction. This is why people are given exams. This is why people are given tests. You want to see where they don't understand. When they show you that they don't understand because they failed the test, then you correct them. That is part of teaching. So when a person breaches a boundary, it's like them failing the test. So it's up to you as the owner of that boundary to actually guide them along and bring them to a point where they actually get it right. When you feel that the boundary that you've set around your personal life has been honored and respected, that is what will bring peace, and that will make you feel safe. So that's the second benefit of having boundaries, is that they give you greater safety and peace. Third reason why boundaries are important is that you have more compassion. Now, this one sounds like, oh, what does compassion have to do with boundaries? I'll explain to you. This simply means that when you are free from the intimidation and oppression of systems and other behaviors that cause you to feel small, when you are free from that, you are more compassionate towards people that are going through an abuse or going through intimidation and other things that relate to bringing down your self-esteem. So a person's compassion is built when they have boundaries that are working for them, because what that means is that they are sitting in their safety zone, and because they are whole and operating in a place of freedom, they are able to extend compassion to others. Because when a person's boundaries have been honored, and when boundaries are healthy and serving their purpose in your life, you will find that you are more aligned with your integrity, and then you can be more generous to others. You can show more compassion to others. So the benefits of boundaries that are working actually spills over to your relationships with other people. You tend to honor other people's boundaries if your own have been honored. You tend to be more compassionate if you feel that other people have been compassionate to you. So boundaries help you become a person that is whole and stable and balanced. And that's what you actually serve to others in form of compassion. Many of us struggle to set boundaries, and I do understand that. It's human nature to actually feel you don't want to restrict others. And I understand, coming from a background of African descent, where we are taught to have everyone come into our lives. We'll go to our neighbor's house. We easily interact with strangers. And so we are not brought up building boundaries around ourselves. And so when we grow up, we are more susceptible to abuse and people crossing our boundaries. So I understand, coming from a background where we had no proper boundaries that were personal to us. We couldn't say no as often as we wanted to. So when you're coming from such a background, I do understand that it can be quite challenging to learn how to build boundaries. So there are some reasons why people won't want to build boundaries, and one of them is that boundaries may not have been modeled to you when you were younger. And I've alluded to that already, that if you didn't see your parents saying no to every request, you don't know that it's okay to say no to certain requests that actually take away from what you really want to do. Another reason is that if as a child you went through trauma, or you had parents that struggled with addiction, then you may have learned to put others' needs above yourself. Now, there are certain cultures that will put others before themselves all the time, at their expense. And I have been found in situations, as a leader, where I have visited a home, okay? And they serve you this scrumptious dinner, and you sit down to eat, and the hosts won't sit at the table until you have eaten and you are satisfied. Whatever is left on the table is what they will eat. So many times I went against cultural protocol, and I insisted that, look, you need to sit down with us and eat. But they've been brought up to put their guests first. So when they serve food, they stand back around the table and watch you eat. And if your plate is running low, they just dish some more food until you eat to your heart's content. So these are cultures that have been trained that way, to put other people before themselves. So such people can find it very difficult to put themselves first. Now in life, there's a place where you need to put yourself first. simply because it is healthy for your mental health, it is healthy for your physical health, it is healthy for your emotional well-being. It is something that you can learn, and that's the good part. Even if you were brought up as someone that doesn't know how to build boundaries, I hope in the next few weeks I can help you learn how to build boundaries and understand that your life is valuable and important, and you need to protect it with healthy and working boundaries. Another reason that people may feel, I don't want to set any boundaries, is that sometimes the need to be liked and accepted overpowers your ability to set healthy boundaries with people out of fear of upsetting them. Now, we know that in a hierarchical kind of interaction, if you're interacting with the boss of your boss and the boss of that boss, you know what I'm talking about. If it's at work and you're interacting with the CEO and you are maybe middle management, so you're thinking, okay, there's like 5-6 steps above me before I get to the level of this man that I'm talking to. So if he asks you to do something that is, beyond your capacity, chances are you will feel, I don't want to look like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't want to look like I'm incompetent. So you will say yes to things that you know you cannot execute. So this is what I'm saying, that sometimes people struggle to make boundaries because they are feeling like if they make boundaries, those boundaries will work against them in terms of being liked, being valued, or being seen as a person that is competent. Another reason, and this is the last one, why people struggle to set boundaries is that you do not know what boundaries are, and you believe others should just know what they are supposed to do around you. Now, like I said before, if you don't communicate your boundaries, they are as good as absent. They're as good as not being there. So boundaries need to be communicated. Those are some of the reasons I've come across in my interactions, in my coaching, in my counseling, in my mentoring. Those are some of the reasons I have found that people give as to why they can't set boundaries. And I know that boundaries are more difficult to execute when relationships are very close, like, family. Family feel like they have access to your whole life. They can budge into your time, they can budge into your privacy, and they can demand things from you. But you can still set boundaries around family relationships. So having healthy boundaries can be quite difficult. And that's why next week we will talk about how to build healthy boundaries. And I am so looking forward to that session. I hope this one has been helpful, and we've made headway in starting on this topic on boundaries. So this has been Diana Fumbilwa, and I will see you next time. God bless you.